Hey, I'm Bethany and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about a crazy concept that most people are totally unaware of. This is something that's happening in your brain that is not actually being controlled by you. It's something that is actually being affected by the people around you and the environment that you're in. The other study I'm about to show you is fascinating because you're going to see how someone can go from knowing that they're telling a lie to actually believing it to be true. But before I show you this crazy study, I want to ask you a question. In the last video, I talked about how the brain's natural programming is to protect our beliefs with such a tight security system that it's impossible for any outside information to come in when it doesn't match your existing beliefs. So if you haven't seen that video, go check it out right now. But how did those beliefs get there in the first place? How did they get created? Did you choose which beliefs went into your brain, into this protected system? Or do you think it's possible that somebody else could implant a belief and you could spend the rest of your life believing it? You can see how important it is to examine those beliefs, find out where they came from, who gave them to you, and are they even true? So here's how the study went down. Imagine you were shown these 3 bars of varying height and on the right, a reference bar. Which bar is the same height as the reference? So obviously the answer is C, right? These questions are straightforward enough that control groups consistently answer with 98% accuracy. But then they shake things up a bit. Imagine there are several other participants in the room with you. Instead of answering the question right away, you first have to listen to the answers of the other volunteers answering out loud before it's your turn to answer. Seems easy enough. But then, after a few questions, this happens. And now you're thinking, what? The answer's clearly C, but everyone in the room has unanimously chosen B. Is there something wrong with your eyes? The test subjects are given 18 questions about which bar matches the reference bar, and on 12 of them, the group unanimously chooses the wrong answer. All of the other participants in the room have been briefed beforehand about which answers they would give, and the person answering at the end is the only real test subject. Surely no one would let a group of blind strangers influence their perception, right? Well, it turns out we do. This study has been repeated several times, and the percent of subjects who refuses to agree with any incorrect majority decisions is only 25%. When the test subjects were questioned afterwards, some of them even admitted that they came to trust in the group's perception over their own. So we'd all like to think that we wouldn't just go along with a group of strangers who was clearly believing in something that was false, right? But this study shows us that eventually 75% of us will conform to the popular belief of perfect strangers around us, even when the truth is staring us in the face. So if a group of total strangers can create a belief in you, imagine what would happen if it was influenced by your friends, your family, and members of your community to have this popular belief. With a lack of exposure to outside information other than your friends, family, and community, the world maps of religion show us that the human tendency is to just conform to the faith of the people around you. So the question is, how do you break this cycle of conformity and stand up against the peer pressure to point out what is the clearly obvious answer? It turns out that having a single voice of dissent is enough to break the cycle of conformity. In this study, when they introduced a single dissenting ally, participants reduced conformity by 80%. So will you be that person to stand up and point out the truth that may go against the popular belief of your friends, family, loved ones, community, strangers around you? Others may secretly see it too, and your courage will give them the strength to do the same. Now, this human tendency to conform to the popular belief of perfect strangers around you gets even crazier with this next study I'm about to show you. You're about to see how someone who doesn't believe in the popular answer at first will believe it 100% to be true after acting as if they do. Imagine you're a volunteer in a 2-hour experiment on measures of performance. You're taken back to a room for half an hour and you're to place 12 spools into a tray one at a time, and then remove them one at a time. Then you put all the spools back in the tray one by one, then remove them one by one. Then you repeat this over and over and over until the half hour is finally up. Then for the next half hour, your task is to rotate a set of square pegs by 1/4 turn, then 1/4 turn, then 1/4 turn, then 1/4 turn. Then you repeat this for another half hour, again and again and again. Just as the boredom is about to kill you at the end of the hour, you're finally asked to take a survey. On a scale of -5 to +5, please rate your answer to the following questions. Were the tasks interesting and enjoyable? Do you think the tasks have scientific value? Would you have any desire to participate in similar experiments in the future? So obviously, after spending an hour on repetitive, monotonous tasks, subjects had a fairly negative response to these questions, with the control group averaging between -1 and 0 to the 3 questions. So we know from the responses of the control group that this was a very boring study. But then we get to the testing portion of the study where things get more interesting. So imagine after spending an hour bored out of your mind, right before you take the survey, the experimenter asks you for a quick favor. He tells you the girl in the waiting room is the next subject who will be coming in to perform the same tasks, and they need you to give her a positive introduction to the experiment. The guy who normally does it called in sick today, and they'd like if you could fill in for him. It's a really simple job. All you have to do is make the following points. The experiment was really enjoyable, you had a lot of fun, it was very interesting, and it was exciting. Then, as payment for introducing the girl to the experiment, if you were a test subject in Group A, they offered $20. And if you were a subject in Group B, they offered you $1. Now, as the tasks in the experiment were deliberately designed to be monotonous and boring, the experimenter is essentially asking you to lie. We know from the responses of the people in the control group that the tasks were the opposite of interesting, exciting, and fun. But if you were in the group that was being offered $20, surely that would be justification enough to tell a little white lie, right? Which is why Group A recognized that they were getting paid to lie, and they still reported low numbers on their surveys about how exciting the tasks were. But what about the people in the $1 group? How do you justify telling a lie for one measly dollar? You actually start to believe what you're saying. Test subjects in the $1 group started to believe what they were saying must be true. This is how a lie turns into a belief by the person simply acting as if it were true. This is how you can go from not having a belief to conforming to the beliefs of the people around you, to acting as if it were true, to actually believing it yourself. In the Mormon Church, they taught us that you get your testimony by simply living as if the church were true, and then you will come to believe in it. And from this study and other studies that I'm going to actually link to in the description below, we know that you come to believe anything when you act as if it were true. So I hope you can see how easy it is for a person to adapt a belief just by getting exposed to it, especially if it happened when you were a child and you didn't have the resources to filter out what was coming in from your friends and your community and your family. And even without knowing the source of your belief or whether or not it's true, people will protect these beliefs as if their life depends on it and perpetuate them by teaching them to others. And since beliefs are ultimately what determine your life choices, my hope is to give the power back to you. If you want to be the driver behind the wheel of your life, you need to find out where those false beliefs are hiding in your brain and uncover the truth about where they came from. The most profound thing you can do with a damaging belief that you're believing right now is to pinpoint the moment in time when you first started believing it, and to recognize that whatever parent or authority figure it came from, that belief was not yours and was not true, and that it came from them. Now, the reason so many people in the Mormon church are not willing to examine their beliefs is because they can't see that any of them are damaging. That's because they've been trained to ignore anything bad about the church, and they believe that they are living inside of this one true formula for happiness. So this is the very most important first thing that a Mormon needs to overcome. And in the next video, I'm going to talk about how the church is deeply damaging to its members, all while members are trained to believe that the church is making their life better. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.